Welcome to the Nexus Point, a podcast for next-gen accounting firms. Here's your host, Geoff Bruskin.
Welcome back, guys. This is the Nexus Point podcast. My name is Rich. Today, we're talking with White Tiger Connections CEO and managing partner, Geoff Bruskin. And today, we're going to be diving into the topic that every seasoned practitioner thinks about while starting at the mountain of 1040s every March. And that is, how the heck do I retire from this without breaking everything? So if that's you, or if you want it to be you someday, take a listen. We're glad you're here, and we're going to be talking about how to exit gracefully, get paid fairly, and keep your clients happy. All through what we're going to go over is the 100% seller finance transition. Geoff, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Rich. How about you?
I'm doing all right. Anything big happening on your end of things as the year 2025 comes to an end?
Well, the seller finance transition is definitely something that gets a lot of conversation in the accounting space. It's something that I think begrudgingly has fallen on the profession as a necessary evil, especially with the 1040 driven practice. It is the average 1040 cost under $1,000, that kind of thing. Or in some cases, I have a few transactions going on like this right now, the entirely paper-based practices. Ultimately, the things that make a practice less desirable to a buyer, and there actually are a lot of buyers for accounting firms right now, but low billed clients or paper driven practices, or if you are the practice, these are things where, if you lack staff, for example, anything that would make you not want to buy a practice, if that's your practice and you want to sell it, it doesn't mean that selling is not possible. It just means that you may have to be the bank and finance the transaction to the buyer.
Well, I appreciate you going into that. You touched on a lot of things that I think we're going to be able to dive into a little bit deeper. But to start us off today, for those who may not know, or just who are trying to get a better understanding of what a 1040 heavy firm might look like operationally, how does that typically impact? Because like you mentioned, the market, there's a lot of buyers in it right now, but how does a 1040 operate heavy firm operationally look like if I'm trying to get out? Say if I were the owner, how would that look for me?
So defining qualities of 1040 rich practices, usually they do not have very good technology. They usually do not have project management system. Obviously they are extremely seasonally driven as pertains to revenue. And so the structure of a practice is it makes it hard to buy. It makes it hard to buy from a staffing perspective, because you've got the seasonal, spikes, and then the seasonal dips, and then the seasonal spikes. And then it also makes it hard from a transition perspective. A lot of the 1040 rich legacy practices do not have clients that are used to uploading documents to a portal. They're foot trafficking in the office. They're giving you stacks of paper, hopefully mailing them to you, but maybe coming in, talking your ear off, your admin's ear off at the front desk. And so these are things that generally, make them harder to swallow. But the interesting thing about 1040 practices is there are a lot of them out there. So I actually do think that there is a lot of winners that have the ability to emerge who, for those of you who are tenacious enough to solve for the 1040, I think that you could be very successful. And interestingly, there's actually a lot of other services that individual clients might need as well. Think about life and health insurance, trust and estate work, real estate, brokerage or mortgages. A lot of 1040 practices are locally concentrated, something, that might be negative. You could think about how to flip that and make it a positive. And so because there are so many of them out there, and a lot of them are just going to shut the lights off, I think buyers who are innovative in this regard have the chance to be really successful.
And I imagine the clientele of those firms probably have a good amount of trust built into those relationships. Maybe not all the time, but I would say there's a big deal of trust, because there's so much information sharing, and they kind of, if they keep going back to the same person a bunch, I imagine that also probably presents a challenge in also transitioning an owner out of that sort of practice, because there's so much of a relationship there. Is that something that you're seeing, or kind of like you touched a little bit on some of the unique challenges that are facing it, but if you had to pick, one or two of the bigger ones, like could you talk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I think that the one you alluded to, Rich, is definitely a big one. The owner dependency in the practice. I've practices for sale, for example, that are million in revenue, where the minimum 1040 cost is $2,500, and it's 100% remote practice. And in those situations, the owner can be too involved in the practice. Alternatively, there could be a practice that looks and smells like that, where the owner is completely absentee, and he's got folks at the advisory level, at the manager level, at the staff level, and at the admin level who are operating the practice, so he could be an absentee owner. The thing about 1040 practices, especially the volume 1040 practice, right, is that they commonly will not have owners who are working on the business. They will have owners that have kind of built themselves begrudgingly a job, and it's oftentimes making less, and they're working far harder as a result of maybe just some of the bad business practices, underpricing, not good client boundary training protocol with their clients on a year-over-year basis, and so the owner dependency in the practice and in the bad practice is a lot of what exists in the 1040 world. And yet there are 1040 practices that have phenomenal owners who are really, really good people, and who don't have a $200 minimum price point. They have a $600 minimum price point. And there are some businesses and some accounting work that's in there as well. And so it doesn't have to be, the extreme. It could be an intermediate, but I would say that for every 100 accounting firms that are seller curious, because I never want to say on the market, there, a lot of people will dip their toe in the water or kind of going halfway, but then something will fall apart because they won't get what the bad broker promised them, either by way of valuation or deal structure. The practices that are on the market in some shape or fashion, probably 80 out of 100 of them are, 50% or more of their client base are orphan 1040s. And so if you think about how many buyers there are a lot of buyers. The accounting space is getting a lot of positive attention right now, which is great. But every 100 buyers, 95 of them want the 20 firms, that have less 1040s or no 1040s, or only high net worth, ultra high net worth individuals, or business owners. And so there's kind of an imbalance, a lot of froth in the market right now.
Understood completely. And again, if I'm a 1040 heavy firm owner, why might a 100% seller finance be appealing for me? And then what would you tell me, or the other people that you work with, or you're kind of you're just helping through the process like this? What would you tell them to prepare themselves, and why is it appealing for them to do the 100% seller finance route?
So the 100% seller financing route is not appealing for the seller, and I will not try to color that poetic. It stinks. I think you being the bank as opposed to the bank giving you money. The former is not as good as the latter 100% of the time. What I will say, and it's a great question, we're in the business of buying and selling goodwill. That is what we do when we transact a professional services firm. And so as a seller, like as a buyer, your relationship with the other party is somehow, it actually is a substantial thing. It is not an insubstantial thing. It's not just the cultural, cherry on top at the end of the day. It's the fabric of the business. And so in a seller finance transaction, you are going to have culture be more important than ever, because whatever vision you and the buyer set out to achieve together, your liquidity is going to be tied to that shared understanding you have being carried through time. And that means, multiple seasons of success, of whatever the alignment of that vision is, whether you're cross-selling other services, or you're raising prices, or you're implementing technology, or you're changing client service dynamics, like eliminating foot traffic, or doing that in a cadence, any of those things in a cadenced fashion, bringing on more staff. You as the seller focusing on business development because there is a delivery infrastructure overseas or onshore, or you're leveraging AI. There are so many different reasons why a buyer might be interested in your practice, even if you're like, why would anybody ever want this headache? It may not be a headache to someone who is tech forward or who has, more infrastructure, but really you should explore that. You should, connect with me, connect with us as a firm, connect with, anyone in the market who is in this space so that they can talk you through what your options are really.
So you're even saying for a 1040 heavy practice with all the tech that's going on right now, there are ways that you can kind of clean things up and eventually retire being happier than what you created, being able to step away from with all that legacy, all that stuff. There are ways you can leave the profession feeling fulfilled and doing all the work that you did.
Abundantly, yes. And the biggest thing, Rich, that holds people back from that is mindset. And it sounds corny and cliche, and I don't even like it as it rolls off my tongue, but it is unfortunately the hard truth. There's nothing different about what a lot of the buyers in the market are bringing to the table than what you as a seller might already have, bad pricing, bad client dynamics, blah, blah, blah. You've got the laundry list, every problem that an accounting firm could possibly have. The only thing that separates the buyer from you is maybe a fresher perspective, a little bit more outlook. And that's something that we do as a firm. We do consulting. We help firms self-drive the implementation of modern technology tools, standard workflows, adjustments of pricing. And as we work through with firm owners, the things that kind of hold them back from this, it's all in their head. It's all in your head. I have a client right now I'm working with on this. He has an average 1040 cost of $200, and we're raising it to $400 this season, which is insane. It's 100% increase in minimum fee. And we're doing that with his legacy clients as well, of which he has quite a few of them. And it is really, really scary to him. Not even from a revenue loss perspective, although certainly that's part of it. It's scary to him because he doesn't want to let these people down. But the unfortunate truth, and I think he's starting to understand this, is that he's not helping them by allowing them to continue taking advantage of him. He cannot give them the time or the attention that they need. He's missing things on their returns. He's, completely emotionally exhausted. He doesn't have the ability to grow his practice or to focus on his success whatsoever. And he, will start getting upset with himself for not having incrementally done this and gone from 200 to 250 to 300 to 350 to 400. But the reality is that we are here in this moment. We can't go back and change things. All we can do is act appropriately now. And we're not changing it to 600 this year, which is, really kind of a tolerable minimum for the profession writ large. H&R Block, TurboTax, Liberty Tax are charging $395, $495, $550 on a minimum, depending on where a client is based. And they are offering, on a good day, 30% of the service that this gentleman is offering by way of example. We can work with people in a mindset capacity, and sometimes that's what's needed is to talk through with other folks. First of all, pull up the spreadsheet and see how, when we do this, even if you lose 40% of your client base, your firm's going to grow, and 40% that are going to leave you, notwithstanding the granny or the handicapped kid down the street, because we want to keep the fabric of the firm. But the 40% of clients that are going to leave you are the clients that you almost want them to leave. It's not always like that. It is painful, but it's good. It's growing pain. And then that's just the beginning, right? Is pricing. We talk about all of the service optimization things, even without going offshore, Rich, just as you know, with the technology that can be implemented, with the hiring that is possible when we don't bind ourselves to a geographic locale, but we unlever with remote talent. Empowered to be successful because we have the environment, the SOPs, the tech, the workflows where they can focus. The opportunities in the space right now are huge because of the talent vacuum and because of the amount of firms that are selling and because of how wealth management and legal and estate planning and everybody else wants to integrate a comprehensive service dynamic. So it's a good time to be in accounting.
Yeah, and I think the last point that you were making there, to me, what really resonates, I think, across the whole profession is once that mindset shift happens, the the floor like reopens back up to what your possibilities are. And I think I really appreciate that last point that you touched on, because I think once that's often the biggest barrier for people in everyday life. But I imagine in a profession where, you're trying to provide good client service, you're trying to provide value. And once you get stuck, it's probably hard to reset that. But once you do, like I said, the floor is back to being yours. And then there's ways to, have a plan for after when you're done, and not leave it in shambles, or like you mentioned earlier, just turning off the light. So, is there any final points that you want to share with us today on this topic just before we close out?
I think a lot of folks can't even imagine what that kind of reset, that floor would look like. I talk to a lot of firm owners who say, oh, well, if I could sell it and start again and I could do it the right way this time, there is something to be said for that, because then you don't have to unlearn bad behaviors from your client base. But, there are not a lot of firms to buy that have clients that have been trained correctly. So I'm of this, and, we're young, Rich, so it's on one hand easy for us to say this, but on another, I think the right attitude to have is a hunger and appetite, fire in the belly, right? For being willing to get into the weeds and to do the hard work, in order to raise the floor of a practice, whether that's with pricing, technology, procedures, mindset, which is obviously how we unlock all of this with consistency. And we can help.
Yeah, that sounds good. And the way that you just, took me through that conversation today, it all seems like it's surmountable too, which is refreshing to hear, because oftentimes, again, going back to that mindset shift, you think it's not, but there's people and there's solutions, and it's just about taking that first step forward. So again, I appreciate everything that you talked us through today. Very insightful and very helpful. But if there's nothing else, we'll sign off there for today. And again, if you're that 1040 heavy firm owner looking to retire, there are ways out, and there are ways to be successfully out and feel good about what you've left behind. And we'll catch you next time on the Nexus Point podcast. See you later.
Thanks, Rich.